Hey everyone, my name is Matan Hazanov and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about why a venture capitalist is not going to sign your NDA. So first, what is an NDA? It's essentially a legally binding document that restricts whoever is receiving information from you from disclosing that beyond their team. And of course, there are plenty of nuances. Check out, there's plenty of resources about what's included, what's not included, what is an appropriate NDA for different industries and different contexts. But suffice to say, right now we're going to be talking about it in the context of a startup raising money from a venture capitalist early on in that process with them. So well before they're in deep diligence and trying to close a deal. I'll start off with the story. I had a conversation with an entrepreneur that went something like this. So what problem are you solving? The problem is very big and many businesses need our product. Okay, but specifically, what problem are you solving? The problem is experienced by most companies, but I really can't share that without an NDA. What did you have to figure out or innovate in order to solve the problem? It's our secret sauce that we developed over many years. It's very sophisticated. Aha. But what specifically did you have to figure out that makes it unique? That's proprietary. I really can't share more about that without an NDA. Do you have any customers? We have a lot of customers, but I can't really share the details about that without an NDA. Can you share anything? We have a lot of interest in this round. Sign an NDA quickly so you don't miss out. Admittedly, that's an extreme version of a conversation I have with entrepreneurs not too infrequently. Maybe 1 out of 5 entrepreneurs that's looking to raise money from my firm will ask us to sign an NDA early on in the process, and they're not willing to share even some basic information before we sign one. And to me, that's a big red flag. So in this video, I'm going to go through why a VC is not going to sign an NDA in most cases, why it's a bad tactic for you, and maybe even some appropriate situations where you may ask for an NDA. Now, of course, this isn't legal advice. Always ask your lawyer, make sure that you're comfortable. I'm just a person on the internet, someone that does this for a living, and it's just helpful advice if you're looking to go out there and raise money and to reduce the amount of barriers for VCs to review your company, to speak with you. So this is just my opinion. The first reason why a venture capitalist is not going to sign your NDA is because it's very time consuming. If every entrepreneur that's looking to raise money demanded that we sign an NDA before we spend time to learn more about their business, even some basic information about their business, we will need to hire a whole team just to manage that process. Because these are legal documents, and if you want us to take them seriously, we have to spend time making sure that we agree with all the wording in it and that we're keeping track of them and that we have a database to collect and to manage and to ensure that we're not transgressing these NDAs. And because a good venture capitalist, a partner at a venture capital firm, is seeing and speaking to hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs every year, if we actually have to sign an NDA with even a fraction of those, it becomes an untenable and time-consuming process that's just not worth it. The second reason a venture capitalist is not going to sign your NDA is because it makes our job a lot more difficult. Part of what we do is actually going out into the wild and learning about all the innovations that exist out there. And if we had to sign an NDA with every company we come across, or even a fraction of them, we won't be able to use that knowledge in other contexts. And this may sound like, oh, we're going to use this proprietary information to our advantage somewhere else. But that is part of the game of going out there and innovating and building a business. What you're doing is going to be public, and you have to be comfortable with that, especially if you're going to raise money. So in order to do our jobs effectively, we have to be able to use the knowledge that we learn, at least knowledge about general innovation and companies that we learn about in the ordinary course of our business. Now, I'm not talking about specific financials or customer information we learn about companies that we speak to, but about ideas, about what's going on in the market, about companies that we see. This type of information we have to be able to use in order to do our jobs effectively. And that's one of the reasons a VC will be reluctant to sign an NDA. And the third reason that VCs will not sign an NDA is that it's a red flag. Now, let's assume that the other two reasons I mentioned are no longer relevant. We've found some way to address them adequately. But if you come to a VC and before sharing basic information about your business, like your product, your innovation, even some basic traction, you're essentially telling them that you believe that your business is at risk if they share that information with the market, with their colleagues, even with their competitors. Now, I'm not saying that a VC should do that, but what you're implying is that your business is at risk, or else you won't ask them to sign a non-disclosure agreement, right? And that's a red flag, because the value in your business is far beyond it, or should be far beyond some of the basic information that you're presenting. Mainly because this information will be in the public anyways eventually. You'll eventually have to share some of your customers. You actually have to go out into the market and sell it. In order to sell it, you have to disclose what it is. And if your business is threatened by disclosing what your product is and what your innovation is, not by sharing detailed IP or anything like that, but even just sharing your idea in detail, then your business is not investable to begin with. Okay, now that we discussed some of the reasons a VC is very reluctant to sign an NDA early on in the process, let's talk about why it's a bad tactic for the startup to ask for it in the first place. Now, the first reason is that you're setting up a barrier for a VC to learn more about your business. Now, VCs that are doing their job, ones that are credible and that out in the market, they come across thousands of startups. You do not want to create an artificial and unnecessary barrier for them to speak with you, because if you do, they'll just go on to the next company. Another reason it's a bad tactic is that it's actually very hard to track whether or not a VC discloses your information, making the NDA itself unenforceable. So what you're doing is you're creating a barrier in such a way that even if the VC did something nefarious, you would have very little recourse, because you wouldn't know in most instances whether or not they disclose it. And even if you do find out that they disclose it, are you going to go out there and sue them? Because that'll take a long time and a lot of money, and the odds that you'll probably win such a case is low. And again, I'm not a lawyer, but in my career, my close to 10-year career as an investor in startups, I've never seen once the attempt at enforcing an NDA, not even once, let alone someone trying to enforce it and winning. It's so exceedingly rare that an NDA even ever comes into the picture that I'm surprised anybody asks for it still. But another reason it's a bad tactic is that what you're trying to protect against is usually not an issue. A VC is not in the business of competing with you. They want to invest in startups. They don't want to create or build their own companies. Now, there are limited cases and circumstances where a VC may be invested in a competitor, and maybe that'd be a cause for concern in terms of what you can and should share with them, because that will get into the hands of your competitor. But this can be avoided quite easily by just doing your diligence on the VC and seeing if they're invested in a competitor. Maybe they'll invest in the future, but that's not something you can control. And a way to mitigate this risk is by sharing information that will not harm your business if it fell into the hands of a competitor. And in some cases, it's impossible to avoid this risk, because even if a VC signed an NDA, they could still be acting nefariously. And again, you will have very little recourse, because you won't know, in most instances, whether or not they disclosed your proprietary information. So you can avoid a lot of these risks by just doing your research on the VC, not sharing information that is so proprietary that it can actually harm your business if it fell into the hands of a competitor. And of course, why it's a bad tactic, like I mentioned before, it's actually a red flag on you as an entrepreneur. It shows a lack of experience. Somebody that's building an innovative business, their true barrier to entry, their true advantage, especially I'm talking about software companies, hardware startups, consumer products, and the like, is their ability to build a team, to get traction, to execute on a plan. It's not the idea. Ideas are very cheap. Successful businesses are not one in the idea stage. They're one in the execution stage. So if you want to prevent competition, it's not going to be in protecting your idea at all costs with an NDA. It's going to be in taking that idea, building and executing and getting sales. If a competitor got information about your product, that shouldn't risk your business. That's why when an entrepreneur comes to us and asks for an NDA very early on in the process, that to us shows lack of experience and a lack of confidence in their ability to actually execute on their plan. And finally, when is it appropriate to ask for an NDA? There are certain industries where sharing your innovation, your trade secrets early on can actually be detrimental. I don't think it's true for software, for most hardware startups, but maybe in life sciences, it could be true. I'm not entirely sure. This is where understanding your industry, maybe speaking to legal counsel in your industry, will be very helpful. Or when you're later stages in the process with a VC, we're more comfortable signing an NDA when we're deep in diligence, when we're asking for basic very detailed financials, when we're asking for customer contracts and the like. There, it's more understandable that you would ask for an NDA, because then you're really opening up the kimono and you're sharing all the deep, dark secrets of your business. And there, it may be appropriate, and the VC is at that point committed to the process and will be more amenable to signing an NDA. I think this stage is probably after you sign a term sheet, where the VC has enough information that they can make an investment decision, and you basically have an understanding with them about the terms, and they're engaged from that point on in deep diligence to make sure that they want to close the deal. I think at that point it may be appropriate to ask for an NDA. I still think it's unnecessary, and some VCs will still be reluctant to sign one, but at least at that point the VC's invested enough time that it's not just, we have to sign 100 NDAs, just to speak with companies that we think are interesting. So to recap, VCs are going to be reluctant to sign an NDA because it's a waste of time. It's a very difficult process to manage if even a fraction of the startups that they come across ask to sign one just to get basic information, and it's a red flag for the entrepreneurs. Don't do it if you don't have to. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Matan Hazanov. If you want to hear more videos on venture capital, startups, and entrepreneurship, like and subscribe to my channel. Drop down a comment below. Let me know what you think of this video, and I'll see you on the next one.